Hi, this is Lisa Schermerhorn here, and I am thrilled and excited to introduce you to Dr. Christiane Northrup. She has written the foreword to my book, We Are Quantum, which is a collaborative effort with some really amazing people in it. We've got Dr. Joe Vitale, Carrie Madej, some people who have done some really extensive work in the quantum field. And I have this platform that I put together so people can get to know the authors at a deeper level. And Christiane is a women's health expert, visionary pioneer, wellness speaker, and New York Times bestselling author, and an amazing, amazing fighter. Fighter for her rights, for our rights. I mean, I really, you are an extraordinary visionary. I've looked up to you for so long, and when I got the chance to meet you, I was thrilled because you are exactly as you appear. Like you have such a big heart and you're very open, and that doesn't always happen when you meet people you consider mentors. So, welcome.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And getting this message out to people that we are quantum is absolutely essential. We are basically condensed light. That's what our bodies are made out of, biophotons. And when you understand how and this is the words of Dr. Mario Martinez, founder of the Biocognitive Institute, we co-author each other's biology. So, and we have this biofield around us, this 6 feet of biofield, coming out from around us that's like a donut shaped thing. And so we have a lot of research on that that's not in the mainstream, but we've got it. Gary Schwartz at the University of Arizona in Tucson has demonstrated how we emit light. We literally emit light. Now, there's two kinds of people. There's the light emitters, and then there is the energy suckers. And we have been, it's interesting. When I wrote Dodging Energy Vampires back in 2018, I didn't realize that it was actually predictive programming for what has been going on, but what we were about to see in a big way. But once you understand that you're quantum and that you can recharge your biofield, recharge your battery, how? By your thoughts, by who you hang out with, by your food, by the air, by grounding on the earth, by the water you consume, then you are understanding exactly what the Bible said, which is you can tread on snakes and scorpions and nothing will harm you because we are made in the image of God. And that's what you've been going around teaching.
Yeah.
I've been going around teaching. And the truth is, I was horrified in 2020 how everyone, not everybody, but the vast percentage of people literally just folded into the mainstream, basically satanic narrative. I mean, and we're talking people who did not vaccinate their children, people who had all organic food, and then and all, my group, the yoga teachers, the Waldorf school people, the homeschoolers, the organic gardeners, and suddenly they would have their virtue signaling on social media of getting a an untested bioweapon injected into their body
Yeah.
and somehow thought this was different, that this was different. All of that was that, but this is different. And no, that's the biggest deception on the planet. And what's great about it for me, not for everyone who fell for it, when you saw it, I had a big platform back then.
Yeah.
So I used it. I used my platform to point out the agenda and a lot of the unsavory parts of the agenda that people just don't want to know. So, for instance, at church last Sunday, my insurance guy came up to me and he said, "Do you know about that blood thing? And I think it's got a Chrome in it, like the Chrome browser." Yes, I know all about it. And he was so disturbed. And I said, "Yeah, been teaching about that since I found out in 2020." And what's interesting, Lisa, is that
Can
for
you
those of
expand
us,
on that? The Chrome
oh, of
browser and the
course.
blood? Yeah.
Yeah.
People,
Okay.
yeah.
So there's this stuff called adrenochrome, which is the adrenalized blood of tortured children that has been used for decades by a species of, you can call them whatever you want, the bloodline families, the demons, the Nephilim, the whatever they are. And these are negative entities that have run the planet like a farm, using humans as their food. And this is so disturbing to people. But in Good Friday of 2020, I listened to the documentary Out of Shadows by Mike Smith.
Mm.
And it was Good Friday of 2020. And he said, I don't know anything about, I forget what he was saying, but I do know about Hollywood. So he made the documentary about Hollywood, the wood of the holly that casts spells. And he was a stuntman on some real blockbusters like Batman, and fractured his pelvis in a freak accident. So as he was rehabbing from that, his Pilates person said, "Can I pray for you?" And at the time, he didn't like me. He didn't know much about the Bible, but he's like, "Well, knock yourself out." And then she said, "What do you think I do all day? You're working in a demonic system." So, we all as a collective woke up, at least those of us on the front lines,
Right.
woke up to, wait a minute, what's been going on? And I thought that everyone would want to know
Y-
how wrong I was.
You really caught because you were one of the first, and I remember you did an Instagram almost every day, and my
I did.
roommate
I
and
was I
I,
was I was
yeah,
absolutely compelled. It was like a ministry. And I get, if I were one of those, I'd say, well, God told me. No, it wasn't that. It was like I just felt called. Like I have to talk about this because I'll bet you other people are wondering what is going on. So I did it like every day, every day, every day until my Instagram account was removed with 170,000 people. I still can't get my name back on Instagram.
wow,
Was removed the day after RFK Jr. and a bunch of us did a webinar that had 40,000 people on it called The Truth About COVID. And that was in April of 2021. And we all lost our social media platforms after that. And then, right around that same time, I, along with 11 others who had been telling the truth, was named one of the disinformation dozen by Ahmed Omed, somebody, the Center for the Countering of Digital Hate out of London, which is a Soros-based
right.
organization. Um, Jeff Childers has now taken our lawsuit, and we've gone further than anyone else because it was just a censorship industrial complex. Adam Schiff wrote to Congress and said you should be removing their PayPal accounts, which was done, and Venmo. Yeah, and all of that. When I first saw the disinformation dozen thing, I just laughed. I said, this is the dumbest thing that I'd ever seen. They accused us of being responsible for 70% of the misinformation about COVID on the internet. In truth, we were responsible for about 0.6%. So it was a lie from the beginning. But then as we tease it out, we begin to realize, see, I was no stranger to medical censorship. As a past president of the American Holistic Medical Association, I knew about the Flexner Report from 1910. I knew about how John D. Rockefeller had dismissed every natural healing modality, closed all the natural medical schools, the homeopaths, the naturopaths, the osteopaths, the herbologists, all of it. They were all closed. And he paid enormous amounts of money to allopathic physicians, which were physicians who just used drugs, most of them petroleum based, and surgery. So this became standard medicine. Now, the reason why I'm so dangerous to them is that I'm board certified in obstetrics and gynecology, went to Dartmouth Medical School, and then Tufts New England Medical Center. So I was ripe for the picking because despite being named one of Reader's Digest 100 Most Trusted People in America in 2013 and being on the Watkins Spiritual 100 list, the most spiritually influential people on the planet, in 2020, whatever. The the Satan is all I can say, working through these
Well,
puppets.
I
Um,
remember
you know,
watching you. You had your own show on NPR. Didn't you do
I
like
did.
a
I had
big?
I had 8 public television specials.
Yep.
Yeah,
I remember and you were on Oprah. I mean, you were the darling. You were the cutting edge of educating women on women's health.
yeah,
And I remember watching you and going, wow, what an amazing woman, because you were really going against a lot of the mainstream and you had quite a huge following.
yeah,
Quite a huge
yeah.
following.
Yeah, I did. And then what happened to the following that was so interesting that shows, see, we're in a time of great deception. So I was giving a lecture out in Kansas City, and they kicked us out of the Kansas City Convention Center because some of us were not wearing masks to go to the bathroom. And so this was Health Freedom for America. It was, an early group of wonderful, wonderful young people who didn't understand how deep this was going. And I knew because my whole career, seriously, I'd walk into Maine Med where I was a clinical assistant professor and I'd sort of wait for the pink slip, like they're going to find out, that I'm delaying cord clamping, that I'm putting the baby on the mother's abdomen, that I am advocating for not getting 72 vaccines by the age of 18. And it had always been my wheelhouse. I wasn't saying anything different. It's just that the level of deception was so huge. So
Yeah.
I'm there in Kansas City. We're outside in a park, and a friend of mine is standing next to a woman who hears me speak, and she says, "That woman's work saved my life, dot, 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 but she's lost her mind." So that was the word on the street. I used to follow her. She really helped me, but she's lost her mind. And
Yeah.
I have a good friend who lived in New York, and both of us have said we have to forgive New York City. I mean, I don't ever want to go there again. I have, but um, when I did a rally there in October of 2022, you couldn't go to the bathroom in Manhattan without your papers, without your vaccine passport. And I vowed I am done with that. But anyway, I have a good friend who left New York after 16 years, and she said, I have to forgive New York City. I said, yeah, me too. But she also, when a friend said, have you heard Chris Northrup? She's lost her mind. And my friend Karen goes, I wanted to see where your mind went.
You know, it's so funny you said that because I have a friend who was a personal patient of yours in Maine, and she said the exact same thing to me because you had endorsed my last book, and I was so excited. And she goes, yeah, I used to follow her, but she's lost her mind. I'm like,
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Like sudden, but think of it. This is the tool that they use is to make you, to vilify your credentials, all of the rest of the, and most people, this is true, most people are so afraid
yeah,
to not be liked and to
yes,
be criticized. They're so afraid. But you know what? I've written 10 books. I had 3 New York Times bestsellers. And when I started, the media was not happy at all with even the idea that the mind and the body are connected.
yeah,
So I had media training that was like being in the trenches, learning how to, what I learned was defensiveness to a reporter is like blood to a shark.
right,
But then all the reporters lost their minds. I mean, we know that the mainstream media is the mockingbird media, and
yeah,
they say the same thing, whether you're in Kansas City or Portland, Maine, it's a threat to our democracy. And, what was interesting though, is you and I did a couple things. We watched Out of Shadows. By the way, the New York Times reached out to me way back then and said, why do you think so many of your followers are watching that movie? And I could feel it coming. Then I had a New
mm.
York Times reporter constantly wanting to interview me. I think it's time we had a feature piece on you in the New York Times. And I thought, nope, I know where that's going.
Yeah,
Finally, the same guy moved to the Washington Post and was able to create his hit piece on me. I think it's called the pandemic's worst woman. You know, so I've been smeared across the entire planet. And what that does for you is it makes you realize what Jesus went through. I mean,
Mhm.
not that I'm Jesus, but when I was down at Rhema Bible College, the Clay Clark very first Reawaken America
That's right.
tour, I had Christians praying over me and I was moved, like I was emotionally moved. They weren't saying, grew up Episcopalian. They weren't taking the Book of Common Prayer and doing a rote prayer over you. They were literally in the moment, bringing in the Holy Spirit and praying. And I would be moved that they were praying for me. Wow. And then they gave us all this little thing, Kenneth Hagin's The Believer's Authority. And it starts in with, this is who God says we are. And then Ephesians 6:12, we battle not against flesh and blood, but against powers and principalities of darkness that are not of this world. It is not your job to fight them. It's your job to expose them. And it's like this sort of knowing just landed on my head. And I started to go to a church where they just teach the Bible. But the main thing they teach, they got a big chair against the wall. And they said, your job is to have a relationship with Jesus. And I thought, I can do that. I can do that. My name is Christian, for heaven's sakes.
Mm.
And, then I went on to watch the baptisms. Now, I'm an OBGYN by training. And I remember the first time I saw a baby born and how I was overcome with the glory of it. And then I'd watch the full water baptisms over on the left, and it was the same energy. I said, oh,
Wow.
this
Ooh, I
is
just
real.
got the chills. Wow.
Yeah,
Ooh,
this is real. This isn't a bunch of crazy fundamentalist, the way Christians are always portrayed, like stupid idiots, right? Um, and I learned that was not true. And then, I was baptized and the Holy Spirit landed on me. I was just weeping. It's like, I can't explain this. I cannot explain this. So, that has been my journey. So at this point, I kind of love where everything is going, and I truly believe the Great Commission, which is at Pentecost, which was last Sunday. It's 50 days after the resurrection. Jesus says, "Okay, power is going to land on you. I'm leaving, but now you guys do this. Heal the sick, raise the dead, rout out demons." And it's right there in the Bible. That's what we're supposed to be doing. And I didn't see Christians doing that either. So I thought, well, we got to boldly go do this. So now I'm, taking a course with Pastor Curry Blake to, he's got about 100% success rate of healing the sick. It's like, I'm all in.
it it's amazing. As I've worked my way through all of this process myself, because I grew up in a household, the New York Times was the Bible, and Walter
Yes,
Cronkite was
you're
the
right.
Word, and Dan Rather, and you didn't question any of that. And every morning, that was the ritual. I sat with my father and we read the New York Times together. So the idea that this authoritative paper, this being was not giving true information and really twisting and distorting information
Oh,
was too much for a lot of people. And I understand there's a tremendous amount of brainwashing that's happened when you've had information repeated. As someone who works with the unconscious mind and body mind connection, it's the unwinding takes a lot of courage, because people are
yeah.
worried about what other people think and they want to fit in desperately. So when you have a visionary and someone who's out there, saying what they believe is the truth, their truth, and trying to put it out there, I remember going, whatever happened to listening to both sides and having a debate? Like, debate is gone.
Gone. It's gone.
Gone.
And then think about what they did. Now, I don't care who you are, but when your whole career and your whole platform is to be against one person,
Yeah.
and I'm talking here about Trump derangement syndrome. I don't care if you hate Trump, but if you make that the focus of your life, this is not a platform. Just like when the pandemic started and we had the George Floyd thing and all of that, some of the young women that I had literally mentored turned on me and then made me the basis of their platform.
Yeah,
That's not a platform.
yeah.
Yeah,
Having a platform of hate gets you nowhere.
it's true.
It gets you nowhere. And here's one of the things that I have learned throughout my life is the greatest gift that you can give yourself and others is forgiveness. Because
Yeah,
when you do that and you let go of all your anger and everything, you can be in a state of neutrality, which puts you, gets you into, which is present moment, which is where we all aspire to be. And when you are, my favorite saying is resentment is like swallowing a poison pill, expecting the other person to die. And you think
yeah,
about so much energy going into, I don't know if this is true, but it was on the news that the woman, when Trump made the comment about Tylenol, and there was a pregnant woman who ended up overdosing herself on Tylenol just to spite him,
yeah,
and she
yeah,
died and
yeah.
left a
Perfect. It's a
baby.
perfect example, isn't it? It's crazy. It's just crazy. I have a New York lawyer, Madison Avenue. He's been my media lawyer forever, and I adore him. And he said, I would like to believe that it's all Donald Trump's fault, but that would be absolutely stupid. And
And this isn't about being political. This is
no,
about being authentic and finding your own truth. And when you're in alignment and when you're in your own, in that place of authenticity, that's when the world really shows up for you.
yes. Yes, that's exactly right. And what I have found, because at the beginning there, and only recently, I have been meeting people, especially some, some real kind of warrior men who've come up to me and said, "You have no idea how strengthening you were during that time."
Yes.
Because literally the world turned upside down. And, so we're all supposed to be uh, sheltering in place and 6 feet of social distancing while 5G towers are going up like mushrooms. And I'm thinking, am I the only one noticing this? Um, but if you think about it, Lisa, with compassion, the entire school system since what, the 1920s, the 1930s, with starting with Dewey, the whole school system is to create factory workers. It's to create people who don't question, people who don't think critically. They took civics out of it so that no one understands the Constitution.
Yeah.
And here's the way I boil down public education. Here it is. Do not break the seal until told to do so. That's on a standardized test. I've done many of those. And then here's women's health in the current thing. We didn't find it this visit, but keep coming back. We will. That's how it is.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
It's amazing, when you think about, like, I have friends who are herbalists and really live off the earth. And
yeah.
the brilliance of these people who are so connected to plant life and so connected, I have a friend who'll look at me and she'll be like, "Oh, you need ashwagandha and you need this, that, and the other." I'm like, "What?" And she's like, "Yeah,
I
and I'll
love
take
it.
it and I'll feel better." And
I love it.
and there's such a discount to naturopaths and homeopathy and all. I remember my son was so sick as a baby, spiked fevers 103, 105, and I started going to a homeopath because otherwise it was a year of antibiotics
Oh,
and
yeah.
nebulizer, steroids, and I'm like, this is not a life. So I started
Right.
looking into other things. I had pediatricians scream at me in the
Yeah.
waiting room, telling me that
Oh,
I was a terrible mother and I was irresponsible, and that, and all these terrible words. And I was like, I remember I was so young, I just stood there and cried. I was like, he wasn't going to
Yeah,
talk me out of it, but I was just astonished
right.
at
And
that
that's what we
behavior.
do during the whole COVID thing. When they started to inject pregnant women, and then we looked at the actual statistics, not what they were saying, but the actual. So there was a
Right.
article in the New York Times. This was again about June of 2021, where in the data you could see that the miscarriage rate had skyrocketed, but what is the guy's name? Like Shinnamakura, whatever, some Japanese name. But then you go to the end to the discussion, and they say there's been no adverse effect of this shot, but it was right there. And my friend, see, I've gotten to know wonderful people like James Thorpe, Dr. James Thorpe, maternal fetal medicine. And he wrote a book called Sacrifice, which is what he saw happening as a high risk pregnancy specialist.
Mm.
And he lost his job for telling the truth. I also met, when you talked about Pierre Corey, or the New York Times, I met Pierre Corey, one of the top intensive care doctors in the world. And I'll never forget, he's at one of these rallies and he says, I am a broken man.
Mm.
I read the New York Times every morning as though it was my religion.
Yeah.
And now remember, he's the one who went to the Senate and begged them to let him use ivermectin to save people's lives. And they didn't do anything. And the same with my colleagues who lost their medical licenses when they gave ivermectin. That's been a World Health Organization special medication for
Right.
60 years. It's
Yeah.
generic. This was it was unthinkable,
Yeah.
unthinkable. So the deal is we know all that. That's all the bad news. The good news is when you know who you are, then that stuff doesn't even matter. And when you know that you are here for such a time as this, you came, my friend Alex Collier, I love Alex.
Yes.
And, I don't know what you people think about, UFOs or whatever. I just know that the universe is big. And so Alex says 200 million of us came back in time to right a great wrong. And that makes sense to me. It makes
Totally.
sense to me. And, it goes against the people who, if it's not in the Bible, it doesn't exist. But in the Bible, Jesus said, and there's a lot more I could tell you, but this isn't the time. You know?
No, it's slowly information is dripping out that people are waking up. I have
Yeah,
a friend who lost his job, and he was always very vehement about, speaking out about the COVID vaccine and what was going on in the world. He got fired, and a friend of his came up to him in tears and said, "You were right. I'm so
yeah.
sorry."
Oh,
So
yeah.
there are some people who are slowly waking up. Others may never wake up, and that's okay. I just hope that we never ever have anything like this happen again. As our frequency rises, as we're now moving into the fifth density and fifth dimension, and um,
Right.
there's no place else left here but love. And so if people want to ascend and do their work, it's about forgiveness. Even the people who have been aware all of this time need to let go of their anger and their resentment
Yes.
and hatred, because people were
It's,
doing the best they could with what they had at the time.
yeah. Yeah. Or they had the spirit of narcissism and borderline personality disorder going through
That's
them.
that's another
I mean,
option.
that is a real demonic spirit. I um
Yeah. But
I,
there was
I
also,
still
yeah, no, go ahead.
I don't know what to do about that because I have not seen those people change. I believe that they can, but I have not seen it. And they are devastating to their families and so on. And that's been who's running the planet, basically. But like you said, they
Yeah,
won't have a receptor site if there's love, but that it must include love for yourself.
yes.
Love for yourself. Like I really don't want to be around this negative person because they are draining my energy,
Yes.
you know. And so you need to good people, empathic people, healers want to heal everybody. And we believe that everyone can be healed. And I believe that. But I also know I can't, like, I had a woman way back in my past who did a reading and she goes, "You're here to serve, but you're not supposed to be the main course."
You know, it's interesting that you say that because when I first started as a healer, I thought that was my job. And I had one of my mentors make me wear a cape for 36 hours.
Oh,
She
that's
said,
funny.
"You are not a rescuer." And it was 90 degrees. And it was June. I was helping my daughter move. And I remember I took a long scarf and I wrapped it around my neck and had it go down my back. And by the next day, the second day, she said, "The only time you can take this off is showering and sleeping. Other than that, this needs to be on." I was slamming my hands on the steering wheel and crying and realizing how much it was choking me and how much by me trying to save everyone else was not only holding me back, but it was holding the other people back because I'm taking their lesson from them. They're not learning.
Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Yeah. So we're just enabling, not helping.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I learned that
Yeah.
pain was a gift because when people are in enough pain, they'll move, they'll change, they'll start to do, or not. I mean, you know, when you talk about narcissists, they may be so damaged that they just can't, don't have the capability. They get to come back and do that again. But I have learned through my own work that I've had to take responsibility for my own stuff. And with that means taking that good hard look, forgiving yourself, forgiving others. And I've had people angry at me for forgiving others. I had people who won't
Oh,
speak
yeah.
to me about the fact that I forgave someone in my life. And they were like, "Well, if someone did that terrible thing to you, then it must not be true because how could you forgive them?" Right?
Well, here's the thing. What they did is not forgivable, but the person is, as a pastor friend of mine says, the best of men are men at best. So we're human.
Yeah.
I was laughing with a pastor told the story. He said, "Well, here's what a human would do. You see a person in a wheelchair at the checkout, and you're really happy that you can beat them because they're moving too slow. That's what a human does." He said, "No, what someone who's got the Holy Spirit in them will pray for the person in the wheelchair and
Yes.
hopefully get them out of the wheelchair."
Yes.
That we don't do that naturally. We don't, but we need God to be working in us, and we're supposed to be the ambassadors of God and the Holy Spirit here on earth. That's our job.
You know, one of the continuing themes through this book of We Are Quantum with all the authors, I have to say, is that there's a thread of God, consciousness, universe, whatever you want to call it, but when you look at people who spontaneously healed themselves, you know, in several near-death experiences, and people who have been through tremendous amount of trauma in their life and tell these stories, satanic ritual abuse,
Yeah.
some really incredible stories, and people ended up finding God, but also understanding that we are creator gods. We are all connected. We are all one. And I had a really hard time wrapping my brain around the idea that someone who would do such horrendous things, that that's part of me as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you've probably interviewed Kathy O'Brien, who
Yes.
was trafficked to Gerald Ford and
Yes.
George W.
Kissinger
Bush.
and yeah, yeah,
All of it,
yeah,
all of it. And somehow she has survived, and they're not messing with her at this point because she's become such a beacon
yeah.
of love and survival. Yeah.
Yeah, Laura Worley talks about that too. The stories of what these people have endured and the type of MK Ultra programming and is beyond. That's not human. It's not human. But I
No, it's
like to
not. And
think, yeah.
mm, you like to think what?
No, I just like to think that we're moving into a greater humanity now. Where
That's what
into, yeah,
That's what I think. This is the time of ascension. You could call it the book of Revelation,
Yeah.
whatever, but it is, we are ascending. I mean, did you see that thing? It was actually on Fox News. Someone sent it to me, and they baptized, I don't know, 1,000 people in the ocean in Fort Lauderdale, like on last Sunday on Pentecost. I mean,
Wow.
yeah, yeah, it's amazing. And we know that it's the 20-something young men going back to church in droves. And by the way, I am not a fan of religion. That's the Pharisees. I have no interest in religion. I'm very interested in what Jesus actually taught and
Right.
what's in the Bible. And happily for me, I did not grow up in church. I mean, other than the Episcopal Church, which is hardly a Bible based. I mean, think about it. The whole frickin' religion was created so Henry VIII could, um, background, I was confirmed, went to church, all of that. But I never had that religiosity,
Whoops, you're breaking up. Oh,
the old beginner's mind that Buddha told us about. It's
yeah.
like, wow, Ephesians 6:12. I guess that's the truth. We battle not against, whatever. That must be the truth. Sure feels like the truth.
No, it's so interesting to me because growing up, and you know the story about me, I grew up in a Jewish household. I didn't know anything about Jesus, and growing up in a community that wasn't, there were, I think, 11 Jewish families in the town. And so I was actually fearful because there was a lot of, pennies thrown at me and derogatory things said to me. And so in my
Yeah,
mind, that there was a lot of fear. So I
sure.
never bothered or I had an interest to look into it until I started on this spiritual path and he started showing up. And I was like, What?" And I was doing a healing with someone, and he showed up next to me, and he helped me do this amazing healing on someone. The stories in the book about it, but and he's shown up several times in my life. And Mother Mary has shown up. I got a message that I was going to Medjugorje, which is a place where there was an apparition of
Yeah.
Mother Mary showed up in the 80s and gave a message to these five children. And I looked at my friend who was a former Episcopal nun. She's like, Mother Mary's here. She said, You're going to Medjugorje. I'm like, Medjugorje, what? What? Aren't there like still landmines in Bosnia? Why would I be going there? And 5 years to the month I was there. And I didn't pick that trip. My ex-husband did. I went
Wow.
on the back of a motorcycle. He picked that trip. It was our 20th wedding anniversary trip. So, miracles happen in so many different ways. The spirit shows up exactly as you need it to show up. And it changed my life. It saved my life.
Yeah. Yeah. So the news is good. You just have to be willing to step into it.
Yes.
And it takes some discipline. I was listening to a guy talking about we have to take negative thoughts captive. We have to take them captive and then do what God says to do anyway.
I
Yeah.
love
And I
that.
think and that's no different from what Louise Hay was teaching. It's just a thought, and a thought can be changed. And from the thought, you have an entire cascade of biochemistry in your body that either feels great or it doesn't feel great. Yeah.
No,
So
it's
you
so
have
true.
to, you have to choose, you have to choose. Now, that doesn't mean you don't lament, and it doesn't mean you don't repent, and it doesn't mean you don't feel how bad it feels to not be in alignment
Right.
with God.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, it's important for us to feel, but then we let it go. And
that's
we
it.
are not taught, especially men, and I love the fact that you said that about men. There's a whole generation that's finding God and going back to the old ways. I just did an interview today with a woman who I used to study with. She's in India, Kalashri. She wrote a book about men, the ten was it the traps, man traps, because in India it's the rape capital of the world, and she talks
Oh,
about how men treat women and all the different types of traps that you can get into dating. And I said, you know, I'm seeing more divine masculine. I'm starting to see more divine feminine. She may not see it yet, but I said the fact that she's planted herself back in India, she used to live in the US, to plant that seed literally, and hopefully she can start to make those changes because that patriarchy is so dangerous.
Yeah. And, we've kept the feminine principle down. We've
Yes,
kept it down. And I've always said the processes of the female body are reflections of how God comes into three-dimensional matter. And what have we done? We've denigrated all of them. The menstrual cycle, menopause, breastfeeding, conception, gestation, labor, delivery. I was watching Suits, the Netflix show Suits, where Meghan Markle was part of that. I didn't know anything
right,
about that or her or anything, but I loved the show. But at the end, they've got a wrap up finale. And of course, what they have to do this at television all the time. There's a pregnant woman. She's in labor. They take her into the hospital. And all of a sudden, it's a giant flurry for no reason whatsoever. She's the mother and the baby. Their lives are suddenly in danger. So they have to whisk her away to do a C-section. Okay, that it's everything leading up, like why? That's all skipped so that we can cut to the chase because she has to have a medical emergency to fit the storyline. It's
right.
like that show ER, where they would take what would take place in about 6 months to a year in an emergency room and put it all into one night. That's that's what it keeps people terrified of
Right.
their own bodies, particularly women.
And
So you're waiting for the worst.
it's interesting that you say that because Dr. Carrie Madej, who's also in the book, she has a chapter where she talks about she was in a plane crash
Oh, I
and
know all
and
about it
she
because she's
saw her
yeah.
foot completely inverted, like twisted around, and her
Yeah.
story of basically being in the emergency room, and they were saying that she would probably never walk again and even possible amputation, and she made that decision that that was not going to happen, and she healed herself.
Oh yeah, she sure did. Because I just saw her. We were both at a conference down in Orlando, and tonight we'll be together we're, part of the Five Docs. But when she told that story, I mean, she called 911, and
Yeah,
as I recall, she's in the plane. The pilot's unconscious.
yep.
Her foot looks like, and she's got to drag herself out on a wing so that she can elevate the foot. And then she calls 911. They literally asked her, had she had her COVID shot? She realized quickly they were never going to be able to help. So she pinged her boyfriend, he was the pilot, pinged his son. And then some farmer had to come and get them and
Yeah,
cut down all these trees. I know the story is in the
yeah,
book. It's an incredible story. And that was bad actors trying to get her out of there. She's the one that I listened to way back when
yeah,
2020 just started, and I was listening to her give a talk from London where she talked about what was in the COVID shot and the patents, 060606, all of that
yeah.
stuff, and it was such an eye opener. So I did a podcast on the whole thing, gave her credit because I looked up everything and she was absolutely right. Because at the beginning, everybody, that stuff was all there. You could find it. Then they scrubbed everything off the internet, plus all of my videos, my sort of wake up call videos from March of 2020 through the spring of 2021. But I was every night, every night, every night I got on there. It was like, I got to be a beacon of sanity. And to this day, people come up to me and said, you had so much courage at a time when people were just folding. And I didn't see it as courage. I thought it was more of a mission. It's like, I have to do this. And my
Wow.
daughter said to me, well, Mom, you tanked your career. It's like, my career isn't why I'm here on earth.
Right.
That's not it. That's not it. And I would do it all over again. And now, when I look at who my audience was, what they believe, all of that stuff, they're kind of my mission field, because I love them and I forgive them. But I'm moving in a whole new direction. And
Right.
without COVID, I never would know what I now know. I would never have become who I am now. It's so much deeper and more fulfilling, isn't it?
I agree, and I've found new friends and
Oh,
relationships
yeah.
that are much deeper and more fulfilling. I feel like my life, I mean, d- do I want to ever go through that again? No, but it was a great awakening. It was a huge gift in many
Yeah.
ways, and you gave me courage. Telling you, we couldn't wait to hear you talk. We would get on to Instagram and watch you, and all these frontline people who put everything at risk, everything. And I remember you made a comment to me. We were talking early on, and you were like, I gave up my license because I knew they were coming for it. I already had that career. I didn't need it anymore. And I was like, wow. It was
Yeah.
amazing because they would have tried to take
Oh,
your
they
life.
did.
Oh
They
yeah,
did.
yeah, yeah.
The Board of Registration in Medicine here in Maine, it got FOIA'd. They wanted to take me down. I had people complaining about me from Australia. It's like, oh,
Wow.
come on. But that's just the deep state. I mean,
Right, right,
that's just a bunch of little demons who have they have no agency. And if you don't have God, you got nothing. And I had a reading with this wonderful woman, Roby Chavance, who is a pastor in California, lost her church. So she does a reading for me and she goes, well, you just have too much sovereignty. Satan knew he couldn't get you personally.
mm,
There's just part of me. I don't know why. I've always had this thing. It's like, get thee behind. Are you kidding me? Like, come on. But what they did, they went everywhere around me to try to cut off
right,
all the affiliates, all of the finances, all of the
right.
this, all of the that. So I've had to completely reinvent the business and bring over the website and do all of that. But that, that's just what's being asked. Now I run it myself. I don't have to beg anyone and at this point, here's what I mean, everything that you and I were saying, it's
Right.
now all over Facebook, it's all over Instagram. So it's like I can move on. I can move on. I don't have to keep banging that drum.
No, no, because those people who either are about to wake up or if people haven't woken up yet, I don't know if they're going to. Although I think with all the disclosure with the UFOs are going to shock a lot of people as well. But you know, I'm very hopeful. I'm excited for what's to come. I think
Yeah,
people, as we move into medicine, is going to completely change. I think there's so much new technology that's coming out, and I think our kids. I look at. I have a new granddaughter who's 4 months old, and I'm excited for her. I'm excited
yes.
for what she is not going to have, and I remember holding her, weeping, going, "You're not going to have to do what we've had to do.
No,
All this
no,
has been cleared out of the way, so you can come in as who you are."
that's right. And then what she will do when you're sitting around a campfire some night, she'll say, Grammy, what did you do during the change? And
Ooh,
all the people who are hiding in their apartments calling DoorDash can say what they did.
yeah,
And then you and I can tell our grandchildren and great
yeah,
grandchildren what we did. What did you do? Where were you during the great change?
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that went right up my spine and down my arms. That was confirmation. And
Right, right.
I feel like I don't have to fight. Like we're over that hump, that it's all
Oh, yeah.
just coming out now.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited. I'm excited for this book to come out. I'm excited for people to start looking at their lives differently, about how
Yeah.
we're going to live our lives and the body-mind connection and how we can truly heal ourselves and stop giving our power away to others. It's all here and here.
That's right. That's right. Exactly. Good.
Well, thank you so much. This was such a wonderful conversation. I really appreciate you so much, and I look forward to next time.
All
And
right. Great.
yeah.
Great. Well, thank you, Lisa. This is a pleasure. And to work with all the people in your book, this is because the future is not going to be, like one big guru with a big following. It's all of us. It's all of us creating this army of light.
Well, if
Yeah.
you look at the diversity, I've got animal communicators, people who talk to plants, people, I mean, it's everything. Tom Althouse, who channeled the original screenplay to The Matrix, and his story, Michael Jaco, who's has amazing near-death experience and being part of what is it, the CIA and SEAL Team 6 and remote
Yep.
viewing. There's some really amazing stuff in here, so looking forward to it.
That's great. All right.
Bye.
Good.